Okay, now that I've gone over the basic tools and concepts which you can use to build and create rigs, which hopefully will be more intuitive to use, I'm going to very quickly go over how I would rig a character from scratch. Uh, I'm just going to import um, Ryze over here. Now, this is a fairly complex skeleton. We have a bipedal character with two legs, two arms, and okay, uh, an okay skeleton, not too complex. And first off, there are a few things that are not ideal for rigging this character in that the actual character right here uh, he isn't balanced in that he's like kind of tipped over a little bit. He's not standing in the standard frog pose, T pose, and it can be a little bit difficult to start rigging this character. So what I want to do is attempt to realign our character riser as closely to the standard bind T pose as we can. This usually takes some trial and error, but I'm just going to try a few things. Perhaps zeroing out rotations. Well, I'm going to essentially manually take out rotations on the bones just to see if Riot perhaps left the bones in a manner which may be more akin to the standard pose. Okay, that looks kind of okay. Not great. Right now I'm just experimenting with values to see exactly how far I can get. Uh, yeah, it's not exactly the greatest skeleton. Again, go and rotate and see things. We have very odd rotations here. Yeah, the Ryze's book is broken from the rest of the skeleton, which may or may not be a good thing. It could be a good thing if you want to animate the book separately from the rest of the skeleton. And there are ways of constraining the book to very certain ways, which could be useful. Okay, and I guess that's okay. Just gonna try rotating the book. Move out of the way a little bit. But yeah, fairly standard. Yeah, cool stuff. And just make sure that everything else is kind of uh, yeah, it could be worse, I guess. There are many skeletons which aren't in the bind pose, the traditional T pose, which make it very difficult. Like right now, you see that the leg is rotated 150 degrees about the x-axis. Just generally a lot of dodgy stuff. But right now, it's passable. So now, we wish to start building the skeleton. Well, we wish to start rigging this with controls. well, almost. Let me just make sure that all other rotations I can get rid of are, yeah, can do that. And just generally experiment and see how far along the original pose you can get. But right now it's good. So, you want to freeze transformations on all the joints uh, up in the Ryze tool. Uh, and you want to select the mesh and reset the bind pose. Okay. And we can now start building a skeleton, or rather the controls for the skeleton. Create nerve primitive circle, size it up. Yeah, this will be our layout node. And preferably we want to uh, control the root and everything else with the layout node. In this case, we would want to see. We want to parent in some meaningful way the root, the bag, and the weapon, the book in this case. And let's see. Now you have to think about it. Do you want um, the weapon and the bag and the root all to be constrained by this node? Or perhaps you want the node to be somewhere within the layout node, perhaps like the hip control. That is something that you'll have to figure out on your own based on how you want to animate the character. So right now I have a layout node, and the first order of business, I think I want to control um, the legs of IK. And so I go into my animation toolbar and just start setting up my legs. Okay, good. Now I want perhaps to rename this to right leg IK, and I perhaps want a pole vector to help me control the bending of the joint. Just going to very very carefully align the pole vector, and then select the IK handle and the locator, or rather the locator first and then the IK handle, and do a pole vector constraint. And now the knee will turn in the direction that I want. Okay, the now before I get any farther, I just want to make sure that all transformations that have been frozen on the layout node and any nodes that I make from here on. Just remember that. I want to create another circle for a constraint on the foot here so that the foot won't bend. Modify transformations. Perhaps align it slightly better. As you can see, I always go into my orthographic views in order to align things. Uh, Perhaps you may find this kind of workflow a little bit arduous, but I like being precise. Go back in and realign the pivot point so that it rotates at the pivot. Select the circle and select the appropriate uh, bone, which I think should be the foot bone. Yep. And constrain and orient. Now when I rotate the foot, the foot will stay in orientation. And okay, one last thing, go select the circle again, go into my joint, constrain, and point. Now I only have to move the circle when I want to move the entire thing. Good. And again, pull vector works correctly. Alright. Make sure everything is not broken. Everything's moving correctly. And I'm going to name the nerve circle to simply right leg. And I'm going to move this into my layout node, which I named Ryze. So now if, yes. Now everything is moving correctly so far. I'm just going to do it again for the left leg. Make sure it's moving correctly. Another locator. Actually, I'm just going to copy this locator, duplicate by Control D, and simply move it left. So that it's right on the correct bone.